I can't remember if my first concert was that Poison concert, because around that same time, I also went with a buddy of mine and his sister and another one of our friends to the Manhattan Lounge in Wilmington and saw like a couple local bands. I don't even know why we went, but we did. And I had to get like a permission slip to get in because I was like a kid still. And
so I got a story about the Manhattan Lounge. So this was I was probably 21, 22 years old. I had just worked at the radio station in Wilmington, which unfortunately is not here anymore. And
Wilmington?
Yes, it's gone. And they asked me to do PA for Wilmington College football, which was fun. I did Blanchester, PA for a lot of years, so they asked me to do that. And then there was somebody on the press box, somebody who worked with the university. So what they were telling me, I didn't have any reason not to believe them. And since I'm not a partier, what they told me did not register as maybe there was some sort of issue. But he was like, hey, when Wilmington scores a touchdown, which actually happened quite a bit back then because they were pretty decent when they first got in the OAC, the cheerleaders are going to throw footballs into the crowd, and we just need you to announce that the footballs are sponsored by the Manhattan Lounge. And me not knowing any different, not knowing it's this dive bar that eventually got torn down, that was what I said. Somebody came running up the stairs. I don't know if it was the AD or somebody involved. Like, do not say that. That is not true. They did not sponsor these footballs. And I'm like, hey man, I was just told to say that. Like I wouldn't know. So that was my Manhattan Lounge story. I think I went in there one time ever before it was demolished.
The other concert story that comes to mind is the first time I went to Bogart's. I had no idea where it was. And this was like still in like MapQuest days. Like we weren't really in the future yet. And I remember myself and Dave Overstreet driving around Cincinnati trying to find Bogart's. And for whatever reason, I also remember we were listening to The Offspring the whole time, which is kind of weird. But I just remember driving through places I would not want to drive through, having no idea where I was at. Yeah. All because like we were going to go with his girlfriend at the time and another girl to see Orgy at Bogart's.
So I definitely have, I don't want to say a one up to that story, but I definitely have a side story to that story. So back to my trip to New York City on New Year's Eve. So we come out of the concert, and this is pre-GPS days. We had an atlas. We didn't even have like MapQuest. We had an atlas. No, actually, I take that back. We did not even have an atlas at the time. We ended up stopping for a map.
What's a map?
Yeah, exactly.
If you hit, I think, the square button, it brings up the map. Depending on what game you're playing.
So we get out of the concert and we take off driving. And we were like hit the fog immediately. So we end up stopping in Newark, New Jersey, which is not the nicest place in the world. And we ended up staying at this really sketchy hotel for $185 in 2000. Nowadays, $185.
$800 adjusted for inflation.
Right. And obviously it was also inflated because it was New Year's Eve and people were just looking for places to stay. So we stayed at this really sketchy place. We came out of there, and like when the morning hit, we saw there were bars on all the windows, including the McDonald's, which is always a good sign. And, you know, McDonald's has bars on in the windows. So we take off driving, and we, again, don't know where we're going. So we're driving, and then like we come to this one light, and like all of a sudden, like all these people come out of this place, and I looked at the person with me and I said, if they get any closer to this car, we're going to run this red light. Thankfully, they stopped. So we took off. And finally, after driving around for I don't know how long, it felt like forever, we see a sign for US 22. And I was like, it might take us 5 days, but we can get on US 22 and drive all the way home, because that goes all the way through Wilmington. So we got on US 22, and eventually we found the turnpike, and everything was fine after that. But it was like, people don't appreciate the GPS and the mapping and stuff. I hate to sound like an old guy, but like back in the day, like if you were lost, you were just lost. Like that was just it. You would stop for directions, or you would get a map, because that's the only thing you had. So
was there ever a point while driving through Newark that you were like, wow, this Y2K thing must be real? The world has ended.
You start to feel that way.
This is like Mad Max here. What is this?
It was definitely, and New Jersey, I'm sure has some very lovely places in it. That was not one of them. So, and then probably is a lot nicer nowadays because a lot of the cities have kind of revitalized and stuff. But yeah, so that was my story of being caught.
That was actually on their sign getting into Newark, right? Not the nicest place.
Not the nicest place. Yeah.
Hey, what do you expect?